This is Daniel Smith, and welcome to Jets Guru.
Check it out.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here is Daniel Smith.
What is going on, Jets Guru fans and Jet fans out there? Welcome to Jets Guru. Appreciate all the support each and every week. You guys are just amazing. I really can't say it enough how much, I really thank you guys sharing and liking the articles and all that kind of stuff. It really means a lot, to what we're trying to do here. And so I really appreciate it. And Ramon will be joining us shortly once he gets settled in. But, a lot of you guys are tired of hearing about Sam Darnold, even though, listen, quarterback is the biggest thing that's going on around the world because it's the best and hardest position, in my opinion, to play in sports, just my opinion. And, there's a lot of talk about Deshaun, a lot of talk about Darnold. And we wanted to cover it. We want to make sure that we hit those bases, like when new information leaks out, because it is so important. But listen, we also cover other positions as well. And as you know, we've covered running back, quarterback, receiver, offensive line. We've done different things. And now we're doing edge rusher and, talking about the Jets and their pursuit of finding an edge rusher over the years. It has just been really, 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 really hard. The New York Jets haven't had a dominant pass rush in a long time, and it's been one of their Achilles heels, even though the Jets have had really good defenses at certain times the last few years. They've had a really hard time trying to find a legit star pass rusher to kind of lead and anchor their defense. And I think that with Saleh here being a defensive coach, him being very creative, him being very fluid with what he does with his coaching style, and him changing up and adding new elements the last 3 years to what he's been able to do with San Francisco, I believe that he's going to try to find some guys. And with that being said, Krista, I mean, let's before we get into fully about who's a free agent and all this kind of stuff, let's start off, Krista, with what you think the Jets did, how their roster, how the guys on the roster that are currently here did, guys like Jordan Jenkins, guys like Quinnen Williams. I mean, got everyone, Henry Anderson, just Kyle Phillips for the time that he was here, Nathan Shepard, just all the guys across the line, Fadu Kasi. How did the Jets pass rush do, and the linebackers as well? How did you feel about it, and who do you think should stay, and who do you think should go?
Honestly, for me, when you were asking me about what linebackers to stay or go, we're very depleted in linebackers, and that's why when CJ Mosley comes back, although it's been a while since he played an NFL game, and it's kind of like, how is he mentally? Is he going to be there? Because we saw Le'Veon Bell, I know these are two different positions, take a whole year off, and we saw how that affected him. So I have questions about what kind of CJ Mosley we're possibly going to get, and that's not to take away that he's not saying that he's not the same player anymore, because we saw three quarters of the game how great of a player he is. I just wonder if we're still going to get the same CJ Mosley since he opted out. And I'm not, but before someone criticizes me, I'm not against the guy. He has to do what he has to do to take care of his family. I'm not bashing him for that reason. It's just a whole year off. I'm just wondering how he is. But the thing is, we're so depleted in linebacker. I can't even name you a starting linebacker that the Jets could really have because you have Neville Hewitt that's going to be a free agent, and I personally want Neville Hewitt back. I think he's a great tackler. He's always around the football. You can say what you want. I know a lot of fans of before didn't really care about much if you look in Twitter, but I like Neville Hewitt a lot. I think he could be a quality depth guy. I don't know if he fits in a Saleh type defense. That's the one thing I do question. But since we're so depleted in linebacker, I would love to have him back because I do question who we have at linebacker. I still really like Blake Cashman. I know he's been dealing with the injuries. I still want to know what he has. I want to keep him. I like his speed. I know he goes well against linebackers, and I'd love to keep him. And I like Harvey Lange. I believe he's a restricted free agent last time. And when we got Harvey Lange, I'm not going to lie, when we claimed him off the Patriots practice squad, I believe, where they cut him, I didn't know much about him. But this guy's always around the football. And a lot of people like to criticize me because I'm like, hey, how come Harvey Lange's not really getting talked about a lot? Because I'm just saying I respect this guy. Is always around the football. He's always making plays. I'm not saying this guy's a Hall of Fame type player, but he's a solid dude, and I thought he deserved more credit than the guy got. He kind of got swept under the rug. But I'd love to bring Harvey Lange back as well. And yeah, we're so depleted in linebackers. Unfortunately, we have the Jets signing linebackers for to compete for a roster. So as far as linebackers, unfortunately, as much as I love Jordan Jenkins, it's tough because I love Jordan Jenkins as a guy, and I expected so much more from him. And I know that I know he had a down year. It's just really disappointing. I think at this point, I think Jordan Jenkins has to go. I think he needs to find somewhere else. I mean, I love the guy as a person. It stinks, but I think we have to cut ties with him. Another guy I'm kind of questioning is Terrell Basham because although he makes great plays, he also makes some boneheaded plays as well. So I'm kind of conflicted with that one. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 with him, but the fact that we're so depleted in linebackers, I guess, like, I'm kind of open to anybody at this point. But at the same time, it's just like the boneheaded plays that he makes. It's just, I don't know. And as far as defensive line, I love Quinnen Williams. Roll Tide, big Alabama fan here. He really stepped up. I'm very happy for him. I know a lot of people last year were questioning the pick, myself included, because I really like Josh Allen a lot, but I feel like this guy really took it to another level this year, and he didn't really get the respect that he deserved, unfortunately, because the Jets were the second worst team, but I like Quinnen Williams a lot, and I really feel he's just scratching the surface, and I feel him in the solid defense, watch out. And I like Foley Fulikowski a lot. Like to keep him as well. Good rotational player to have. Like him a lot. Great leader to have there. Henry Anderson. Kind of up and down. I know, this year he's had some good plays, and then he has bad plays. I think at this point, the money that we're paying for him, I like the guy too, but I think it's at this point we should just move on, cut ties from him. It was a great first move that McCaggan had with that trade, but I think at this point we should move on. Kyle Phillips, I know that's kind of like Greg Williams' guy. I like Kyle Phillips. We haven't seen enough of him, unfortunately. I was really sad when he got hurt, but yeah I definitely would keep him because I think he's a solid guy. There's a reason why he made the squad before when he was the only undrafted free agent at the time to make the roster. I would keep him. And Nathan Shepard, really like Nathan Shepard a lot. I know a lot of people question his age and all that because he's a little bit on the older side, but hey, he stepped up that one time when we lost Leonard Williams, so I still think he has it. I think in the Greg Saleh defense, I'm really interested to see what he has. I would keep him. Bryce Huff, another guy I really, really like. I know we don't have a pass rusher, but he kind of showed up a lot too and made plays. And I really like John Franklin Myers too. He's a guy that always got pressure on the quarterback. I'm not saying that these guys are starting pass rusher guys at all by time, but I'm just saying that we do have some key depth guys when I was looking through defensive line. But my biggest area of concern is linebacker. I don't know what's really out there in free agency. I really think we do need a starting linebacker somewhere, or that might be a position we just might struggle. But that's why I am for C.J. Mosley coming back and competing and starting, because we just don't. Our linebacking core, looking through our roster, is just so depleted. We only have like guys, unfortunately, and I hate to say that, but we really need someone to step up on linebacker. And as far as defensive line, there's a lot of talent there. We have a lot of depth there. We don't have the two pass rushers. I feel if we had that two pass rusher, it would really help Quinn Williams, take pressure off Quinn Williams, and he can get more sacks. So defensive line, I think there's more talent on defensive line is what I'm trying to say. The more guys I keep up there than linebackers. Linebacker, we just have a bunch of guys, and that's really unfortunate what we have. Oh, yeah, and I definitely would keep Frankie Louvu, too. Almost forgot the guy. Sorry, Frankie
Yeah.
Louvu. Yeah, I definitely keep him. Sorry, Frankie Louvu. Yeah, I keep him, too. I like him. I like what he has. I think he's a guy that has a lot of speed. He hustles. I like the guy's work ethic a lot.
Absolutely, and those are some great points, and on the whole roster, and I agree with a lot of them. I mean, when you look at these guys, you look up and down the roster. The Jets, they're still a 2-win team, and I don't know how good this defense would be, right? You can't carry over what they were able to do the year before, but the offense was really bad. It was really bad, and that compromises your defense because the field position. It gets compromised. You're always putting your defense in a bad position when they're back on their heels. You can't call certain plays, especially because you don't have the personnel on the outside. It's tough. You don't have the pass rushers. It's tough. But there's a lot of value in between here, and I'm interested to see what Saleh could do with this roster because there will be a lot of people returning. I can't say which ones exactly because I don't work for the Jets. But, you look at this roster, Henry Anderson, talking about cap casualties tonight, I think he's going to be one. I think the Jets save over 8.5 or something like that, or close to it. I think that's something you got to do. Henry was awesome when he was first brought here. He did an awesome job. He really, really did. But honestly, the last 2 years, it's been a steady decline. He's almost 30 years old at a really tough position, and we're not seeing an incline. We're seeing a decline. I think at that salary, he's gone. Jonathan Franklin Myers is 24 years old. You could work with that. He showed up on tape. Bryce Huff is 22 years old. He was a rookie last year. You could work with that. Bronson Kufasi, he's 29. There's going to be decisions there. Kyle Phillips is 23 years old. 23. Okay, and he showed up on tape every time except for when he wasn't hurt. Jabari Zuniga is 23. For Lorenzo Fatukasi is 25. Nathan Shepard, 27. Quinn Williams, 23. Blake Cashman, 24. Neville Hewitt, 27. Lange's 28. Luvu's 24. And Mosley's 28. So this is a very young team. So just don't assume that all these guys are going to be gone. The Jets are getting all new defensive players. That's not necessarily what's going to happen here. I think there's a lot of value to be had here on cheaper deals. Okay. And this will be able to allow the Jets to go out and get an Allen Robinson if need be, to go out and get a guy outside of the scope because you don't have to worry about every little position. So we have to see what Saleh does with that. Ramon, we're going to look at you at the draft here. What are some players that the Jets can look at in the rounds that they're drafting where they might be able to pick up some value in the draft? No sound, Ramon.
Sorry about that. You hear me now?
There it is. Yep.
All right, now I'm back. All right, sorry about that. I can tell you some of the guys that I like, and then some of the guys that I think that we'll have. Like I got two guys that I really like, but I don't think we're gonna have a chance to get them, especially if we're using that 23rd pick for Najee Harris that everybody really wants, especially Krista. We got. So my favorite guy is Gregory Rousseau is how I say it. But from the defensive end from Miami, 6'6", 270 or 6'6", 260. He runs a 4.8. He didn't play the previous year, last year, but in 2019, dude, he had 15.5 sacks. And he's compared to like a Myles Garrett or like a Nick Bosa. Both of Bosa brothers really like just a powerhouse dude that's going to get there. And it would be amazing to see two wrecking balls on the line, him and Q, would just be awesome. You know, two young centerpieces reminding me of the Rex Ryan days where, you know, people are afraid of that defensive line. That quarterback doesn't know where it's coming from, or he knows that, you know, he can only double team one of them. Quidey Pay out of Michigan, another guy that everybody really knows, a guy that's probably still going to go first round. 6'4", 277. He runs a 4.79, and he's got a really good power speed mix. He's a very well balanced player. So those are my two favorites. But guys that I think we'll be able to actually draft, maybe a Carlos Basham out of in the second round out of Wake Forest, 6'5", 275 pounds, runs a 4.8. He took a huge jump from 2018, 4.5 sacks, to 2019 with 11 sacks. So just a huge jump in play from him. He also had 3 forced fumbles in 2019. And another guy that's a sleeper, I think, is Joe Tryon, the defensive end out of Washington, 6'5", 262. And he was really hurt by the Pac-12 decision on their season. So he ended up opting for the draft. But he's a developmental guy, and he'll get better with more snaps. I think his development will be along the same lines as Q. And if we can draft a guy like that, you know, in a later round second, maybe early third, if we get the opportunity, and we can have him on the line, it'll be a guy just like Q. You know, we'll draft him, and everybody will want to get rid of him until his last few games of his season, you know, or the last few games of the season, maybe beginning of his second season, we'll start seeing like huge strides, which we have time for because we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. So that's what I got on defensive ends.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Jets, it's something they have to explore. It's a position that they have to really look at because they need to not only protect Quinnen Williams from double teams, but also it's a passing league. And, you know, that's something that I think Greg Sala really understands because he changed his defense a little bit, went more 9 wide when they needed help because we realized, listen, we need help getting to the quarterback so we could slow down some of these big plays here. I don't know if the Jets are going to be in position to, you know, jump out there and get the best defensive players available. But let me tell you something. There's some money to be had, okay? The Jets do have some money. Now, I know in the cap casualty, you know, a lot of people want Jamison Crowder gone. To me, when you look at some of the players that people are talking about bringing in for Jamison Crowder, you're talking about Samuels, you're talking about Juju, and these are all really good receivers that if the Jets had, I'd be very excited and I wouldn't have a problem with it. The problem is the Jets need to be adding to their roster, not taking away and not replacing. And especially if you're not replacing at a premium. Because here's the thing. Jamison Crowder has 1 more year left on his deal, okay? After that year is done, then you could let him go. He could walk, okay? And then you will have flexibility to be able to get a receiver that you actually want, and you'll actually know how this team is going to be put together, and you'll know, is it a guy that I want to promote within? Because the Jets are always like, let's spend money, let's spend the money. But maybe there's a guy within the roster that the Jets would like, or who they draft, who they'd like to promote within to take the spot of Jamison Crowder moving into his final year this year. You have a guy like Juju Smith, right? To me, you could still, with the money that the Jets have, you could still get Juju Smith-Schuster, especially if you're not bringing in a Deshaun Watson and you're not paying $37 million next year, okay? And mind you, Deshaun will only cost you, I think, about $15 this year. So the Jets will still be able to spend even if they get Deshaun this year. But you could still get Robinson. You could still get a guard, okay? You could still do things. You could still get an edge rusher on this roster. But I think that the Jets really, really need to look at is if you get a Juju, you want to move him outside, not inside. When you look at Juju's stats, okay, he was just as productive on the outside as he was the inside. Now, this year, he played more of the slot because that's what they asked him to do, and they realized they had some bombers on the outside that can go and get the ball. But Juju could be very productive. You can move inside and outside with him, okay? So he's a guy that I wouldn't need to get rid of Jamison Crowder. I would keep Jamison Crowder on the roster. Why would I get rid of – and now here's the thing. Why would I get Juju to replace Jamison when over the last 2 years they have the same yardage, they have the same touchdowns, only you know Jamison's played in New York. He knows the people here. There's a rapport. There's something to be had about retaining leadership. And this is a guy that's producing. This is not a guy who slacked off. He had 6 touchdowns last year, and he had 1 throwing touchdown. So he had 7 touchdowns. He had 6 the year before. This is with missing some games. And if you keep Sam Darnold, he's one of his favorite targets. So to me, there's no reason to get rid of Jameson. Picking up his salary isn't going to hurt you in a type of year that we have with money. And I think you look at any type of combination. You look at Curtis Samuel. You look at Jameson. You look at Robinson, Jameson, Marvin Jones, Jameson, whatever, any Galladay, Jameson, and obviously Mims on the other side. I'm happy with all of that because I know Jameson can produce within the slot. And remind you, Jameson was working with a quarterback that was ranked dead last the last 3 years in QBR. Okay? That's another thing to work with. That's another thing to understand. He still produced in that. Okay? He produced in an offense, an Adam Gase offense that struggled. And he still came out here and he still did things. He still came out here and put up stats. He still was a big part of why the Jets even had any type of offense in the game, even though it wasn't great. And so the way I look at it is this. I want to know, do you guys think Jamison Crowder gone, or do you think that he should stay? We'll start with Krista.
I don't understand the talk of why getting rid of Jamison Crowder. I've been all over Twitter. I don't understand it. I have a bunch of people trying to tell me that there's a bunch of slot receivers in the draft and the free agency. But guys, it's not guaranteed we're going to get these guys in the draft or free agency. I know what Jamison Crowder is. He's a reliable target. He catches everything his way. I don't understand the Jamison Crowder hate. People want to get on him about his injuries. Well, guess what? There's wide receivers around the league that get hurt all the time. Crowder keeps producing. Would I rather have Jamison Crowder starting, or would I rather have Braxton Berrios starting? Nothing against Braxton Berrios. I think he's more of a backup player, but I know what Jamison Crowder can do. He moves the chains. He was one of our most reliable wide receivers. I might have like slot receiver syndrome or something because I said the same thing about keeping Curley for so long. I know when fans are quarterbacks, I'm with slot receivers apparently because I never wanted to get rid of Curley. I never wanted to get rid of Cotry. I don't want to get rid of Jamison Crowder. I don't understand why people want to get rid of this guy. I like him. He's on a relatively good contract. And it's not like you mentioned before. Even if we got a wide receiver, we could still work with it. I know a lot of people keep saying Juju. I know a lot of people are saying Curtis Samuel. If we get one of those guys, well, why do we have to cut Crowder? I don't understand. It's not like we're rich in talent or anything like that. I really like Crowder for whoever is our starting quarterback next year, whether it's Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Deshaun Watson, whoever. Crowder's a really reliable guy. He moves the chains, and he's one of the best slot receivers in the league, in my opinion. He's a guy I always liked in the Washington Redskins. I was happy when the Jets landed him in free agency. I thought McCaggan did an excellent job getting the guy. I think it's one of his better moves he's done as a GM. And he's been if you watch his tape, even with the Redskins, when they had no weapons, Jamison Crowder was there, always showing up. He was always balling with Kirk Cousins. He's a quarterback. He's a guy that makes a quarterback's job easy. So I don't understand why to cut Crowder. You can name me and say, oh, you can get this guy in the draft. You can get this guy in free agency, and it's all not guaranteed. I know what Crowder is, and that's why I don't understand the talk of cutting Crowder. I am a strong advocate to keep Jamison Crowder. So, yeah, keep Jamison Crowder. I don't want to hear cut Crowder. I'm probably going to mute you if you go and say it in my DMs after the show. So please keep Jamison Crowder is my plea.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, and I can't stress this enough. The Jets need to add to the talent that's on their team, not replace. Mm-hmm. Replacing only does so much. We need to add to it. If you get a standard slot receiver to replace Jamison, then what are you doing? You still need an outside receiver, and you're going to have to give this guy a multi-year deal. And so not only are you just replacing, you're not adding, you're giving this guy a multi-year deal. And when you need an outside receiver, when that's your true hole. See here, Jet fans, sometimes we get things mixed up, right? It's the same thing when you're talking about the left tackle situation. People want to draft Sewell at 2 to move Becton, who PFF graded the 3rd best rookie tackle, to right tackle. It's okay, that's great that you have Sewell and you have, Becton. right? It'd be great if you can have two of everything that's the best, right? Or one of the best, right? Great. But that is not where the biggest need is. There's other players that can help your football team, and replacing Fant isn't a huge need right now, okay? It is not a bigger need than getting a quarterback. It is not a bigger need than getting a pass rusher. It is not even a bigger need than getting an outside receiver. And so, to me, this is the same scenario that we're talking about here. That's the very exact same scenario. So, when I look at it, when we're looking at guys, and you don't have to have big outside, burly receivers on the outside. The Jets might go small, and you could do that, and that's fine. You could go out and get a Will Fuller if you think he's going to stay healthy enough, because then you got your burner. And remember, Joe Douglas talked about having an offense that was going to be a big-time offense pushing the ball down the field. So that could be an option. But to me, if Robinson could be had, he might get franchised. I would go after him. And we've gone to the receiver list. You can go and get a Kenny Galladay, Jamison Crowder, and Mims, and maybe a drafted receiver in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round that could compete with Berrios in the slot or on the outside somewhere, and start working from there. And a couple camp guys and guys that are on the roster that you might like that could rotate on the practice squad if something happens. But Ramon, what is your feeling on it? Do you think he should stay, or do you think he should go?
Hey, man, Jamison Crowder came from Duke, so he's got to stay. You can look on my wall back here. If you can see it, I got the Duke thing up. So he's a Duke guy. He's got to stay. And Jamison Crowder, he was a 1,000-yard receiver if he didn't get hurt. He was on pace for 1,000 in a terrible offense under Adam Gase with not such a great quarterback in Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? So, I definitely think he has to stay. But at the same time, I would like to see a lot more Braxton Berrios also, because Braxton Berrios, I know people are sleeping on him, but that kid, he's ripped. He's an athletic monster, and I feel like he's a lot better than people are giving him out to be. He's not as good as Crowder is. Crowder's got a lot of years under his belt, but I don't think we should we should sleep on Berrios. So maybe having more of them on the field. Last thing I'm going to say about that is, if you guys think that we should get rid of Crowder, whether it's for Berrios or whether it's to get Allen Robinson, which is going to get franchise tag, which is going to get someone else on the outside, go look at Tampa Bay, right? How many number one wide receivers does Tampa Bay have on that roster right now? You know what I'm saying? You do not get rid of talent if you want to be a Super Bowl contender to get other talent when you could just stack it on top of each other. Those guys are taking pay cuts to stay together. Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, those guys are trying to stay together until Tom Brady is 100 years old and throws his last football. You know what I mean? So when we get talent, especially young talent, keep them together, and we just keep on rolling with the punches, stack them up together as much as we can. We need stability and we need consistency in New York because we have not had it for a very long time. So keep Jamison Crowder.
And if you look at it too, I mean, if the Jets go after Wilson or they keep Sam Darnold, they're going to have a lot of capital to play with. So to me, the Jets are going to probably draft a receiver somewhere in this draft. And you have a couple guys on the receiver group that you like. And again, there is a lot of value. We went through the wide receivers, through Jets Guru a couple episodes ago, and there's a lot of value to be had there. I mean, you don't need an all-world group, but again, you want to be adding talent, not replacing talent, especially most of these guys that people throw at me. Over the last 2 years, Jamison Crowder has nearly the same numbers. Now, if you're talking about an outside guy, that's different because I agree that we need one. But again, we have enough money to add that. But when you look at the free agent pass rushers, this is something that the Jets need to be looking at, because to me, the Jets can have somebody here. There's somebody to be had in free agency if the Jets want to spend the money. And there's a couple guys. You got Trey Hendrickson, 14 sacks. Okay, he's not a guy that's going to play every snap, but he's going to be a guy that when you need to go and get sacks, you need someone to go after and get the quarterback, he's going to go and get the quarterback. And when you look at these guys, I mean, mind you, it's going to cost you. You're talking about a guy who's going to be 20, he's 27. If he just turned 27, he's going to be 28 years old. You could get him probably on a 3-year deal. He's only making $793,000. So you're going to pay this guy. Okay, he's a defensive end. He's someone that could come in, maybe change some things for you. Big-time pass rusher. Okay, there's other guys that are available. You have Romeo Okara. He had 10 sacks. Here's another guy that I think could be really important. And remember this name. It's Kerry Hyder. okay, from the San Francisco 49ers. He has the connection with our coach Saleh, but not only that, there's an article that I read on Niners Nation, and quoted Robert Saleh quotes because the defensive line coach for the San Francisco 49ers, it was really high on Kerry Hyder. He's a guy who'll be 30, 31 years old, something like that. He's a guy that you bring in on a probably 2 or 3 year deal. I don't know, maybe you go year to year, because if I'm not sure, I think he was on a year deal, but I'm not really sure. I think it was like 10 or 13 million. So you could get him for probably a little bit less than that. But he was big time for the 49ers when they had all those injuries. He already knows the system of Saleh. And if we talk about it, these defensive guys, okay, they love bringing in their people because they love to be able to translate on different levels of the defensive scheme, both on the defensive line, linebacker, and going out even into the cornerback market. We already heard possibly Richard Sherman, which a lot of people say he's old, but it's not about how old he is, because we're not expecting him to go out there and be Darrelle Revis in his prime or even Sherman in his prime. What we're asking him to be is to be a veteran presence that can teach a lot of the young quarterbacks, which this Jets unit is going to be, regardless of how you slice it, how Robert Saleh likes to play defense. And if you could get a guy like Kerry Hyder, a veteran, a guy who got 8.5 sacks, something like that, you could get him on a deal. I really think, listen, he's going to want to cash in a little bit here, but he could be had on a year or two deal with the way this Jets have this money set up for them. There's a few guys here that I really like for the Jets. And another guy that I like looking at too is Ronald Blair. He was a favorite of Saleh, and Saleh was quoted because when they were talking about Kerry Hyder, he was like, he looks at Kerry Hyder like I look at Ronald Blair. So you have a guy right there that a coach was talking about. He's like, this is kind of like my guy who gets my system, my guy who understands what I'm trying to do. So there's a few players, in my opinion, that are going to come over from the 49ers to the Jets. Mm-hmm. And those are two of them that I think that could be really big players that could really, really be talked about. I don't know what's going on with Ngakoue. I don't know if they're going to you expect a tag there, or how is that going to work out? I'm not really sure. But there's a few older veterans here that you see. There's an Everson Griffin. He had 6 sacks. It starts to drop off from there. You have Justin Houston from Indianapolis, 32 years old. So it starts to begin to tailor off from there. But the Jets have a few options at the defensive end position that I think they can get better, and they can bring some guys over from San Francisco that can translate that defense over. And then you got guys like Bud Dupree. When you're looking at guys with a little bit more talent, yeah, he got hurt, but you got to expect a guy like that to bounce back. You have a guy like Hassan Reddick, who when they moved him to the defensive end position, outside linebacking position prior to 2020, he wasn't as good, but he thrived, 12.5 sacks. So there's a few guys in here. I'm looking at this list of players. You got Leonard Floyd, 28 years old. You got Matthew Judon. You got Melvin Ingram, who's more of an older player. I think we would pass on that. And then you start getting into the Jordan Jenkins of the world, the Kyler Fackrells of the world. And I think that, and some older talent, and I think it falls off. But when you look at the top end of this talent, you look at the money the Jets have, I mean, unless some of these guys get tagged by the organizations in a year where they didn't make a lot of money, I don't know if they're going to be looking at a lot of these players as the top talent in their field, but these are top talent players. When you're talking about a guy like a Bud Dupree, you're talking about a top talent player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know what I mean? You're talking about Trey Hendrickson at 27 years old, putting up 14 sacks, and he's playing situationally. You're talking about a good player here. So there's some players to be had, both system-wise that can come over to the Jets, both talent-wise. And then you looked at some of the options that you guys talked about, in college, and some of the things that you guys talked about already on the roster. You could see that there's hope for the New York Jets going into next year. You have a guy with a proven track record as a defensive head coach that allows his coordinators to put together their game plans and their best efforts and doesn't step on toes. He allows the machine to move correctly. He's energized. I think the players will take to him. I think players are going to want to come here and play for this guy. And I think when you look at the combination of young talent that we do have, a lot of kind of B and C type of players with a few A's sprinkled in. And I think you could bring in a guy, like we said, maybe one guy, maybe it's a Hyder, maybe it's a Blair from San Francisco for one defensive end position. And then maybe the Jets go out and get a Bud Dupree. You know, maybe the Jets go out and get a Ngakoue if he doesn't get tagged. Maybe they go out and get a Reddick. Maybe they get a Judon. You know what I mean? Because you have to remember, the Ravens can't keep both. I don't think they're going to keep both Ngakoue and Judon. So one's going to be available. Judon a 2 or 3 year deal, and you have him go out. Now, I'd rather have Ngakoue, you know, because he's 26 years old, so there's room to grow there. But, you know, when you're looking at it, I really think that the Jets have some options, and I think they will fix it. So it's really going to come down to what they want to do. If they get Deshaun Watson, right, I think they're going to push a little bit more with the money that they have, right? Because they probably expect Deshaun Watson and the Jets to be competing in big-time playoff spots by year 2. Deshaun Watson, even year 1, because Deshaun Watson's only going to count 15 against the cap this year. They'll probably take advantage of that, try to bring in some weapons, and maybe even go for it this year and start competing with other teams. If they go the Sam Darnold route, this is to me going to be a restoration route, because if you bring Sam Darnold back and you pass on this quarterback class, to me, then you're really saying we like Sam long term. So this is going to be a thing where if they keep Sam Darnold, I just think that you extend him. Why are we going to try for this, 4th year thing? It's like I probably extend him and say, hey, Sam, let's put another 2 with an escape year if we can, something like that on this contract. No question, we're going to say we're rocking with you, put the talent around them. If the Jets do that and they roll with Sam Darnold, they will have money and picks to work with to build this team around. And so some of the things that, Ramon talked about, that can come into play. But to me, you do lose money if he doesn't want to be that premium player. Now, you could go and you could draft a guy like Wilson, and then to me, that completely maximizes your ability to fill the holes. So now you got a guy on a rookie deal. Okay, you trade Sam out, you get some kind of value for him. That's yet another pick. Now you have those 2 first-rounders from Seattle this year and next year. You're rocking and rolling. You got all those other picks. Now you're drafting. Now you have maximum money to go get a Judon, to go get a Robinson, to go get a Sheriff, to go get all these guys, because you don't have to worry about paying a quarterback $25 million in year 2. He's going to be on a rookie deal. Jamison Crowder is most likely going to be gone, if not this year, next year, because he's a free agent. You're going to get rid of Henry Anderson. I mean, you look at this team that, the one thing that Mac did do before he left is the contract situations and the way they rolled out. We didn't really overpay for a lot of too much. We did for like Le'Veon Bell, but now he's off the books. He's going to be off the books. You look at a guy like, and here's another guy, and we've completely forgot he was even a New York Jet, is C.J. Mosley. C.J. Mosley is still a New York Jet. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come back and be all-world.
He's ready.
But from all accounts, he's ready to go. We got him for at least a year. Then he comes off the books next year. So the Jets are going to have money for a little bit, right? And if they're smart about it, and at least the money part about it, they've been kind of smart about it, not getting themselves tied up in too many crazy deals, except for, Trumaine Johnson. I believe they will have so much flexibility if they draft Zach Wilson or they keep Sam Darnold, that they could really maximize and really be a defensive force next year. Because like we talked about, you can go outside and get a number 1 corner, or maybe even a 1B, or, a 2, bring in a guy like Sherman, bring in a guy like Hader, or like we talk about Ronald Blair, and those guys could be your core system scheme guys. And then alongside Mosley, you can bring back a Neville Hewitt, right? And go with that, right? And then you could go and get like a Judon on the outside to be a pass rusher, and then have some of your younger guys supplement around that. And I think that would be really good for the New York Jets. Again, you can't fix Rome in a day, and the Jets were never Rome. Okay, the Jets were like at the bottom, like garbage heap. You know what I mean? So we got to be, and listen, this we already talked about in the AFC. The AFC is getting better. There's a lot of good quarterbacks coming. The Jets might be a team that's better than what their record indicates. And what I mean by that is that their talent may be good, but they may have a hard time winning games because the AFC is getting very stacked with quarterbacks who are already starting to establish themselves, where the Jets will be starting from ground zero with a rookie quarterback, or even with Sam Darnold with a tremendous amount of pressure. He's still learning a new system. I don't expect the Jets. If the Jets win 7, 8, 9 games or more next year, I would be like blown away. To me, I have to see so much before I give the Jets any type of lean like they're going to be a winning team. And so people have to be patient with what's going to be going on. This is going to be a 2 to 3 year operation.
And I think we will see a competitive football. I don't think it's going to be very hard for Saleh to do much better than what Adam Gase did. I think even if we lose the same way the Dolphins were losing 2 years ago, but we got a guy that's energized on the sideline. He's talking to the quarterback. He's doing all those right things. I think the fans will all be happy with that. One thing I wanted to say is the worst position I fear being in is the position that, one, the Bears are in, and then two, the Jaguars were in a few years ago with Blake Bortles. So you're stuck with Blake Bortles, right? And you decide to extend this dude. You give him another contract, even though the whole team knew that he was not the guy. Everybody knew he was not the guy. And look what happens. Now they're rebuilding from scratch because all the players wanted to go. It was just over. And the same thing is going to happen to the Bears unless they get a guy in there. Nobody wants Mitch Trubisky there anymore. Nobody does, right? Those are the two examples, and I would hate to see the Jets build something special like they did in Chicago and Jacksonville, and then we're stuck with a guy that we could have drafted, and then we see Zach Wilson killing it or anybody killing it, but we're stuck with a guy that we know his ceiling is not very high. So,
well, I'm not going to get too crazy into the quarterback because people be flaming me for it all the time. And all you talk about is Sam Darnold, the most important position in all sports. But I've been really good, bro. Like, this whole episode. So if anybody's watching me right now, I've been good. But all I say about that is that, all these guys that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, we're talking about cornerback, running back, because running back's a big position for us this year, I think, especially if you have a young quarterback and especially if you have Sam Darnold. You're going to have a running game going. And I think getting a premier back would be that. Either a guy like Najee Harris, the 23 pick, if he's still there, or like we talked about, guys like Mike Davis and stuff like that who will be available. Someone who played very well for a team with a top-notch running back like McCaffrey, came in, showed versatility in catching the ball. Or there's guys like Aaron Jones. I'm not sure if he'll be tagged. I don't know what the situation is that. I don't know where the Jets are going to go with it. But when you draft a new quarterback, reset that clock, I always tell people all the time, taking advantage of that rookie deal. The third year is really important to me personally, in my opinion, as a quarterback watching and judging a guy. I did the same thing with Mark Sanchez. And I even hung on with Mark Sanchez an extra year longer than I should have. And that taught me a valuable lesson. And then as watching football, as becoming an adult and just seeing that last crop of quarterbacks kind of come out and see, when you see an all-star lights out quarterback, they're not developed, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. Like you might get lucky, but usually when you see that guy. And so, to me, in my opinion, it all depends on what coach wants to do. If coach feels like Sam Darnold is a good enough quarterback, I'm going to trust that because I like what LaFleur is going to be doing. And again, it's a point that we talked about. Like you just said, Ramon, you don't want to be a team that doesn't know who their quarterback is and is floundering when you have a solid defense, when you bring in a guy like Khalil Mack, the final centering piece, when you bring in a Jamal Adams, who is supposed to be your finishing piece. You want your team to be completely set up when you bring in these guys. And when you don't know who your quarterback's going to be, it makes it really, really tough. It kind of deflates it. The Bears should have made a deep playoff run because they had a crappy field goal kicker and a mediocre quarterback. And that's what hamstrung them. What did the Jets have? A mediocre quarterback and a crappy field goal kicker, with many other issues to boot. But I'm just saying, when to be a good team, you got to fill in the little inches in between. It's not about just having a big all-star quarterback. It's not about having the big receivers. It's not about this and that and that and that. It's great to have that. And when it all comes together, it's amazing. But you look at a lot of these teams, they're put together. You know, they have a good offensive line, a good running game, which leads to better play action, which leads to better one-on-one matchups, throwing the ball deep down the field, which leads to penalties, which leads to shorter fields for your defense. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in the game of football in between that helps you. And the Jets have to close the gaps in those inches. So again, we want to add talent, not just replace it, right? And we also want to make sure that we have players that fit the scheme of our offensive coordinator, because there's no doubt this is the LaFleur show when it comes to the offense.
Yes,
Robert
sir.
Saleh is a defensive head coach. He has already said LaFleur is calling it. This is his offense. This is his basically like now it's going to be for him. This is his audition to get a head coaching job. And I need to know that I have a quarterback by the time LaFleur gets a job somewhere else in 2 to 3 years. Because if LaFleur leaves the Jets and the Jets don't have a quarterback, I'm going to be pissed off. Because in 3 years, I'm pretty sure that Robert Saleh is going to have a good enough defense that we're going to be able to win some games. And I don't want to be in that 7-9 win category for too long. Okay. And I don't want to be in that category where we're just, and we talked about this before, let's bring in the veteran. Here he comes, you know, and it's just a story that keeps repeating itself. So whoever it is, if it's Sam Darnold, if you decide that Sam Darnold is good enough to start for the Jets this year, then lock his butt up for 2 more years and say, Sam, let's roll for 2 more years, you know, on a reasonable deal so we can bring guys in. What do you think? And they might make it work because it'll be Sam Darnold's best chance. If they believe in him, you're going to have an innovative new head coach. You're going to have a defensive coordinator to try to put something around you. Maybe they can work on something, right, that works best for both camps. If not, and they feel like, hey, we just think Zach Wilson out of the box is just as talented as Sam Darnold, and we're willing to take the risks with Sam Darnold with Wilson more so than Sam Darnold, because there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on Sam Darnold in year 4 than it is with Wilson, and you might really hit a home run. And if you hit a home run, then you're rolling. And if it's a bad thing, this is what I like about it. If it's a bad thing, you're not searching, you're gone. If Zach Wilson gets drafted and he fails, Joe Douglas is gone, Saleh is gone, LaFleur is gone, and you start new. You start completely new. And so for me, that's the thing that I want. I don't want the Jets searching. This really has more to do with that than it does with me disliking Sam Darnold. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback, but you can win with a guy who's not a top 10 quarterback. I would prefer it, but you can win. I've seen it before. And so, hey, I just want to know that I have the guy. I want to know that this is your guy, and we're not like, we don't know what we're doing, okay? Because I've seen that story played out way too long, and I'm just sick and tired of it because I'm tired of the Jets continually going through this cycle. So you've got a new offense. You decide, do you need a new quarterback or you don't? If not, lock them up. And then, like you said, like Saleh said, all gas, no brakes. Darnold's in. We're rolling with him for 3 years, possibly 4 years. Boom. That's us. That's the New York Jets. Stop complaining. Boom. This is where we're going. But right now, there's so much up in the air, which leads to roundtable discussions like we're having. And so you guys can't kill me. I did pretty good today. I didn't really bash Sam Darnold. I talked about him within the conceptual idea of what we were talking about, of how the quarterback determines how much money we spend in the future moving forward on defensive ends, cornerbacks. You know, when you don't have to worry about paying a guy a premium salary the following year, you know, you can go ahead and spend a little bit more right out the gate. And so that's basically what we're talking about. And Lowell said Bryce Hall is a starter. I agree with that. You could put him in a starting role. I would be fine with Richard Sherman and Bryce Hall with, Bless Austin spelling, and then you find your guys in between. Because, again, we're not going to be able to fix everything. You know, we just can't do it, but we're going to try our best this year. And if you go with it, the tier of what you're able to fix goes like this. Wilson, you could fix more problems. Darnold, you could fix some problems. Watson, you're not going to be able to fix a ton of problems, but he's going to be able to make up for some deficiencies. So if you get a guy like Watson, my number one target is going and getting a receiver for him so my receivers are locked in, and then either getting a new center guard to rotate to shore up that offensive line, and then I'm asking Saleh to bring in some of his scheme guys for lower end money, right, to kind of fill it out and philosophy style while we draft around him and bring in free agents around him, because you're not going to have so much capital, but the Jets still will have capital even if they bring in a guy like Watson to go and draft guys. So it'll be a slower tick that way, but offensively they should be a way more dynamic team. So it's like, do I trust my head coach's scheme, right? Because he's going to be calling it, right? He's going to be calling the shots. It's one of those things where I'm thinking maybe we could roll that way. With Darnold, he's the in-between. He's the guy where we could build, but we don't know, and we won't know. And so it's going to be hard. And with Wilson, it's a complete start over. You can go out and really spend a hell of a lot of money this year if you got a guy like Zach Wilson and kind of empty the bank over this year. And again, next year, you got a couple guys coming off the books, Mosley, Crowder, and a few others. They'll free up a little bit more money so you can round out the team a little bit more. And then you're hoping you draft well, and the Jets might be able to do something in a Zach Wilson second year type of a thing. And so, hey, guys, listen, we got to get going. Really appreciate the Jets talk from everybody. You guys are amazing. If you want to help us out, share the show. It's the best way to do it. Here's another thing you could do to help us. Go on to YouTube, type in Jets Guru, subscribe to our Jets Guru YouTube account. That's really going to help us out. That is really going to get us going, get our numbers going. And also we're on Instagram at Jets Guru and on Twitter, which Ramon mostly handles, at Guru Jets. And so we're trying to hit you on all sides, get you written articles, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And we want to add to this. We want to get more people in for interviews. We want to add more information and get some more, I guess, Jet fan opinions instead of people just laughing at us and not really giving us info on the actual team, because we haven't put together a playoff season in quite a bit of time. But one day we will get there. I promise you. I can't tell you when, right? Because we got to see how all this comes together. Mm-hmm. So I can't really put my finger on it. But listen, they're doing everything that you need to do as a startup. The owner comes, says the GM, he says, okay, you pick your guy. The GM picks his guy, and listen, this guy's respected around the league. He pulls an assistant off the 49ers that the 49ers have blocked several times from getting offensive coordinator jobs. Boom, they get him. Then they start bringing in more assistants. Now, you know my philosophy, Rex Ryan philosophy, got to bring in guys at the levels. That's what I want to see next. I see a defensive lineman. I see a cornerback. I see a linebacker. If I see some of these 49er guys coming over, even on the lower end, even backups and stuff like that, I'm like, all right, now we're building support here. Then I want to see what the Jets do with this quarterback situation. And then once that's in place, we'll move to the draft, free agency in the draft and all that kind of stuff. And that'll get me super, super excited about this team. And then once camp gets going, we'll see the individual matchups, and we could start pointing on finger on what the Jets are going to be like in a Robert Saleh, LaFleur offense defensive team. But until then, it's all up in the air. We don't know. We'll try to give you the best information that we can each and every week. We do this for free. We don't get paid. That's how we roll, baby. But we don't want to roll like that forever, so keep sharing. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night. Jets Guru out.
Go Jets.
Go Jets.